But all right, I guess we'll get started now. More people are joining in. This is a good amount so far. I'll get started. But yeah, this is Swing Trade Monday. Thanks for joining in, guys. I have a couple stocks today I want to go over for some potential swings, particularly with the options. Also potentially some stock too. You can trade it either way. But let's get started. So first, move that screen. All right. I'm streaming this. All right, we're good to go. Bank of America, BAC. I picked up this stock today. I picked out this one because the options are really cheap on this one. And I'm looking for something we could maybe buy puts on short term, because if you don't know about private credit, there's a big sector of the market. It's about 2 trillion market. It's basically non-bank lending, private lending to startups and stuff. And you haven't seen the headlines. Private credit's been blown up. And there's also many other things in the financial sector that's blown up recently. Last Friday, MFS is a bank lender in the UK. It went bankrupt Friday, I believe. So, which sends shockwaves around the financial sector, right? Which is not great for these type of stocks like Bank of America, Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, Citigroup. They're all down Friday. So with this, I want to see if there's any room to capture some more compression in our puts to the downside. So on the wave one, start with this. We know that price is under the average moves, under average percent below pivot. And it's a pretty extended move below the pivot, and we know that. But can it continue? If we're in between the 10% area, the 2% area, open state 47.91. That certainly could be next. But this doesn't tell us, exactly what could happen. So let's keep looking at some other waves. We know we got a 2% chance to get down to that area. Let's look at the wave 3. So if you look at the structure here, ever since we made this L1 right here, made it H1 and went below pivot again, above pivot, H1, and below pivot again. We haven't really got anywhere with this structure here. And this average move below pivot is not yet performed. You get these open states here, red standard deviation, M assigned on the 27th, so very recently. So there's definitely some odds of further compression here. You have the 20% band, 10% open states there at 47.21, 46.62. This was open not so long ago, 5 days ago, 47.88. But all three of these can certainly be closed soon. So I'm seeing a lot of weakness here. If we were truly meant to go higher, we would have had a lot more strength above this pivot. It would have continued higher, but we did not. We made an H1, went below, made another H1, went below. It's just price is trying to find its direction. A lot of times you'll see, depending on the stock and its behavior, a lot of times you'll see price with the upside and downside. It's kind of like a tug of war game along this pivot, or like they call it the level of neutrality area. Like kind of like here, had some highs, made a low, had some highs, made a low. So like there's a pattern there, and then it ultimately compressed. So I want to see some further compression like this right here, starting from today, going into the following days. Well, let's keep looking. Let's go to wave 7 now, see what this shows. So wave 7, we've been compressing pretty well under this 20% band, 10%, below the 2% too, right? And from what I've seen, when price breaks below that 2% band, it takes a lot really to get down below that, and vice versa for upside. So since we're below that, this is obviously an outlier. This outlier could very well continue. Open state wise, let's add some more days. Let's see what this thing shows. See if we got any other lower targets. We do at 42.77. That's a target way down there. That's doable, right? It means or an outlier to the downside, it's below the 2% band. We also got imprint right here at this level, and then here and here. That price could target and find support maybe there. You still have red standard deviation, still in the M, still in compression cycle. We're at L13, which, yeah, with 7% odds, not big odds of occurring, but we're right here. Since we made an L13 since it's already an outlier, the outlier could very well continue as long as the weakness persists. So we can, this 3% might seem like a bigger on, since we're so close to this L14, right? L13, this 3% is more like, 10 or 15%. Since we're already an outlier, since we're already this low, this comes into play. This is more probable since we're already so low. So that's doable. Let's keep clicking through though. See what we have here. 42.88, open state there. Imprint bands here. Price can come down and that can act as support and resistance. That's what it usually does. Below the 2% band on this one too. With red standard deviation going higher. I know for sure it's never great to go long when you see something like this in the standard deviation. When it's red and it's elevated going higher, it's never good to go long. When you see that, as you see that turn green before trying to go long. So long is absolutely a no-go. And trying to figure out if we can consider puts or not on this one. So price is down here. It says average move, this blue line, down to the 2% band. But like the 10 and the 7, it could very well break below this 2% band area if weakness persists in the coming days. Red deviation looks like it's trying to elevate higher. So still no signs to go long. We know that. Let's go to wave 50 now. Let's put 1,000 days. Okay, now look at this. Even though on the wave 3, 7, 10, it shows that we're overextended to downside, it may look like that. On the wave 50, this M just got signed on the 24th. So pretty recently, right? And the higher waves, when we get an M or K assigned like that, it usually lasts for a while. So this just goes to show this might just be getting started. We are down to this average percent down here. A lot of times I'll see something like this. There'll be some support there. I'll try to work its way back up a little bit, and then ultimately go lower and target these imprint bands, their old open state areas, at the support. So that's very doable. And we got open state here at 39.54. So that's very doable too. But in my experience, I don't like rushing into puts right when I see this, because this average percent, it's kind of like the floor right here. And then up here is a ceiling. So price really needs to experience something, out of the ordinary for it to break the area. It happens a lot, but price just needs something. A lot of times we'll see price go sideways or go up like this first and then lower until it finds more weakness to go lower. So, but further downside is definitely doable. But I'd like to see some more weakness occur here first. But for puts, that thesis, I am liking that M was just a sign, red standard deviation above the golden area. It's gained some elevation. So still definitely no sign to be long. We know that. So keep that in mind. But let's keep looking through here. I'm gonna go to wave 100. Okay, so you see here, we've been in a K ascent for a long time, right? Sounds like summer 2025. And we finally turned red, this month. No M assigned yet, but it's looking like it will. And its red standard deviation is just now leaving the golden area. And usually when you see that, that's like the sharpest moves. So this could be a sharp drop to the downside, down to this 80% or the 50% band area. Usually what it does when it breaks through a vector like this, goes for L1, it'll go down directly right here to the average percent below pivot, and then it'll go from there either higher, try to go for a H1 below pivot, or more weakness will ensue, then it'll go much lower like that. It's not just a straight drop down, but something like that. It's like a staircase down a lot of times. I see it. So if we get an M assigned here, I would hope, maybe putting this a little bit further out and collect, some downside pressure, a compression cycle just getting started on the higher waves. I think it was back in November, Microsoft had an M assignment on the wave 100, and it's been down month over month ever since November. So Bank America, same thing. On those higher waves like wave 100, when you have an M assigned and that red standard deviation in the golden area, this compression cycle could last months and months, like Microsoft has. So this could be something. This could be something you hold a little longer too. You can see that price is just now starting to respect this blue line lower, this average move above and below pivot. And like I said, with the other one, we've been in green deviation for a while, K assignment expansion phase. And it's just now starting to fall into weakness, turning red. I'd like to see an M assigned there first, and then we can expect sharp downside there. Like I said, the whole financial sector doesn't matter which bank stock or financial stock you pick. The financial sector, it's a contagion. Once one starts feeling the heat, they all start, feeling the heat. Jamie Dimon used the word cockroaches a couple months ago, and ever since then, things have been selling off and volatile. I believe some of the asset management stocks like Apollo are down 30% year to date. And it's just getting started from what I see. A lot of problems ahead, financial sector, especially with private credit. So look at this real quick, and then I'll go to the next one. This is the wave 200. A lot of times when price comes down to this vector after not hitting it for a while, as we see here, a lot of times it acts as support upon first test. And then it'll try going higher and then lower or continue higher, one of those scenarios. But here, price had some unexpected weakness. It just blew right through the vector here, which tells me there's a lot of weakness. A lot of pressure to the downside appearing. We have this red stimulation. So, in a story, yeah, I would definitely think we get L1 here and start a compression cycle on the higher waves, wave 100, wave 150, 200. And compression, you could think of as like a staircase downward kind of price action for a long period of time. So that's what I'm seeing with this one. And now another one I had was Cisco. You start the wave one here. All right. So this one has been showing a little bit of strength. It was up Friday when the market was down. All right. Showing strength. So that's good if you want to play long. And the wave three here, K assigned 27th, green standard deviation. As long as the standard deviation can kind of elevate higher, like we see right here, something like that, or something like that, right here, that'll help us get like a squeeze higher. It most likely be short term. But this would be like a short term play, I'm thinking. Maybe something for this Friday. As long as the standard deviation can remain green in this golden area and go higher. We don't want this K to go away. We want this to play out. If it turns red, then long is a no-go. And also, this blue line here, the average move brings us up to here, about the 81 area, a little over 81. And price is at 79.42 right now, right at the 80% band. So I can definitely expect price to get to this 50% band, or at least try to go for that direction. As long as this doesn't turn red down here. This needs to stay green, price needs to stay above pearl vector, and then we can have a pretty good chance of hitting this 80, almost 81 area and perform this average move by the end of the week. That's what I'm seeing for this one. The short term. Let's look at the mid to long term though. See what's going on with this one. The wave 7, K assigned not too long ago, still green in the golden area. This needs to leave the golden area green, like I said before. It hasn't really performed the average move yet. It's above pearl vector, so that's good. It's right below 50% area. You can see this average percent area get hit next. Somewhere in here. So like 81 area again, high 80s. Let's go to wave 10 now. Some more days. And this shows that this K was just assigned green standard deviation. It's always great to see if you're looking to go long. Yeah, 27th, that's it. That average move right here lines up to the average percent pivot. We're at the 50% band. It's going sideways a little bit, but it's trying to figure out which way it's going to go. Does it have enough strength to go higher from this average move or higher than that, or weakness will ensue and go lower, make an L1 down to this 8% band area. It's looking good so far. If you're trying to go long, we're seeing clues that this thing could continue long. We know the market showed some strength today from pre-market. It was down big and ended just down a little bit. This is one that it's been on fire the past, month over month, the past 6 months, really. Let me take out these bands real quick so you can see this. See how price has been lurking under this vector there? The vector's at 80.89. I'm seeing this number occur a lot, this high 80s number, almost 81. So I really think we can get to 81 at least on Cisco by this Friday, is what I'm thinking. I've not looked at the options. They could be a little pricey on the money. But even like an 82, because look at these imprint bands there. Maybe even an 82 strike. You could go for that. There's imprint bands right under 82.35 right there. A lot of times when we see a situation like this where price breaks on this vector and the vector stays straight or sideways and staircase is higher, goes sideways again like that, it suggests that price may have the strength to go back up and reclaim this vector there and potentially go higher or lower from there. That's what I'm seeing. And then standard deviation, it's red, but it's diving down. That'll turn green soon as long as price stays strong. Let's look at the higher waves now, see what's going on here. So far, short term, I'm liking what we see. The wave 50, we'll just check the longer time frame just in case. Right under vector again. Price got above this average percent area, but that remained long. Sold off sharply, but we recovered, so that's good. We can definitely break out again. We have open state way up there, 97.63. The standard deviation is red, but it's going sideways for a little bit of time. Now it's going down, so that's good. The downside is kind of giving up. That's what I'm seeing there. Let's load some more days. Let's do 2000. 93.55 open state there. So this is where price is ultimately flowing. It has not given up its level versus the vector. It's used as support, like right there. Even though we sold off pretty strong there, positive support. Now we're going back higher. So it's ultimately trying to go flow up there, from what I'm seeing. But for the sake of swing trading, for the short term, let's focus on the wave 3 through 10. Wave 3, 7, and 10. Because we're seeing clues for upside, right? Before I jump on either side, long or short, I always think about what could go right, what could go wrong, what are the clues, right? You gotta go through all that. It's a process. 'Cause, I don't want to be wrong. The clues for upside, I'll tell you again, is price is above the vector. That's 1. 2, standard deviation, we have a KS sign, K meaning expansion cycle starting out. And 3, we got green standard deviation. So that needs to remain green to get a squeeze higher than current price. And I kind of see something here. Let me draw this. 1 second. My screen's kind of frozen. Uh-oh. Let me try reloading this real quick. There we go. Sometimes it does that. Kind of see something here. Do some drawing. Kind of like a wedge. There. Yeah, something kind of like that. It's close. It's kind of, kind of like a cone there, wedge. So, oh, let's delete that. A lot of times we draw stuff like this, and it lines up with predicting the bigger move to come as price gets closer to this, X area. So I'm thinking, tomorrow or in the coming days, could perform this average move, get to open state, or at least the average percent above pivot right here, the 81 area. really thinking it's pretty probable, right? Really a H1, 62% odds of high of 2, right? It's doable. What could go wrong though is, let's say the whole market's down big and it drags Cisco down with it, or Cisco is down, right? No matter what the market does, that can happen too. And then this turns red, then price falls under vector, it goes back under pivot, we have an L1, okay, long's a no-go, we're not playing long anymore. If we see that occur tomorrow, then we're not playing long. And then wave 7, similar thing, price needs to stay above this vector, at least needs to show some strength tomorrow, at least. You know, it could start the day under vector, but close above vector, that'd be great. It's all about the close. And then this needs to stay green, leave the golden area green. And then we got a bunch of imprint bands right here in the 82 area, 83, that this thing can close pretty quickly. So that's what I'm seeing with that one. Again, short-term upside, that's what I'm seeing with that. The longer term, I'm not really sure. I have to read more about Cisco. And FedEx, we went over this one yesterday, our Sunday study session. I believe there's a very clear short play of this one. I'll show you why. So let's zoom in this. I think this close, this ended a little stronger towards close, but I still believe we have some downside. Green or red standard deviation popping out. Right at the pivot. You know, it's not showing that much strength. Let's see, you're still holding your good, yeah. Yeah, we went over this, like I said. You can continue to hold this. I'll show everyone why. The only problem is the timing. I mean, this thing could show some strength in the short term, but ultimately, kind of like a bull fake out or whatever you'll call it. That can definitely happen. But look at this here, day over day. We've gone like sideways ever since the 20th. It's kind of run out of steam, you know. We got open state there at 422.95, but the time is not on price's side, because as time goes on, this vector grows stronger and stronger. And as this goes higher, the resistance grows stronger against this projectile being price. So price really needs to figure out if it can go higher or not very soon. If not, it's making it L1. And then we have a high of 23 here, which is not super extended, but it is, you know, statistically 18% odds of this occurring. We had a 57 high, which is 9% odds. It's in half. Only one occurrence of this. And anything further. Let's go to wave 10 though, 1,000 days. You know, sometimes these kind of trades take a little bit. Price goes sideways for a little bit. They'll kind of fake you out for inputs. They'll try for some upside and lower. I've seen it like that. But look at this big run we've had. High of 89 above this pivot. Go to the option analyzer. This high of 89 only had 2% odds of occurring with one occurrence. And you compare that to the occurrence of an L1, it has 10 occurrences and it happens 100% of the time. Which one do you think is more probable, further highs or this L1? I mean, statistically, it's this L1, right? Look at this big bar, this column right here. So this thing is pretty extended. I believe it's up like 70% in like 6 months. It's kind of hard for me to believe what it is. The percent bands on. I mean, it's way above this 5% area. Extreme outlier. The problem with the outlier is, you know, it takes a lot for an outlier to occur. And when an outlier does occur, it usually continues for longer than you think. So just because this thing went a big run right here above the average percent, above pivot, doesn't mean you go short, because look what price did for a while. Just kept going higher and higher, higher. Fell through a vector, gained strength, went higher. It just used this vector as, you know, a strength area, support area. And we really expanded right here. Yeah, that would have been a great run of hold calls, but price is going sideways, like I said, with the other wave right here. It's looking like it ran out of steam. I don't think there's any open states. Let's double check. Okay, there is at 508, but that's an 80 high. Look at that. This is an 80 high, the 508 open state. We're at an 89 high. I mean, that's pretty irrational in my opinion. For FedEx to get to 508, what's going to happen to FedEx for it to go that high, right? Especially in the short term. This isn't that much time. So only 2% odds of this occurring at all. It did occur. Very low probability. It seems pretty obvious so far that we're going to have a reversion, at least somewhat of a reversion, right? Maybe not a giant pullback, but somewhat of a reversion at least. So puts are definitely tempting. I absolutely do not believe there's any case to go long in the short term. Definitely don't want to go long. We do have these open states that are way up there, but again, I mean, that's just kind of irrational. What could possibly happen to FedEx get that high? We're at a high of 92 on this wave 20. Let's see. Yeah, affected by oil prices for sure, right? It's their profit margins, all that. 105 high. Well, who knows? They could have stocked up, right? They have a whole team that watches that geopolitics, but still. Yeah. Transportation doesn't do that well anymore, right? Why would it? Wave 50, 174 high. Look at this again. Only 4% odds of it's occurring at all with one occurrence. We're at that now. I mean, this thing just really overextended. I'm kind of in disbelief on how overextended this thing is. Yeah, so yeah, I'm definitely liking puts at some point. And this right here is kind of one of the most telling things. Wave 100 and a 200, I'll show you in a minute. So as I tell people a lot when I have these sessions, measure all this. It's average percent above pivot. Remember this as like a ceiling you see in like day trading. When we have a ceiling, floor, that's a ceiling. This is the floor down here. Because this is the average range that price moves throughout time on this wave 100. You see from like here, we flowed, we went from top to bottom down here, and now we're on the other side again. So see that? This is like the range, the average range that price flows over time. And anytime it gets above or below, it's an outlier. So something really good might have to happen to FedEx to get an outlier higher, especially to that 560.75. That's way up there. I can look at the smaller waves, wait 70, 60 minute. Yeah, for entry, we can look at those. I'll do that after I look at this. But yeah, we can see something like that. That's what I'm thinking. L1 down there. But this is where price stays in this range most of the time. Let's call like 80% of the time or whatever. It stays in this area. And now we're up here, and look what happened here. Upon first test, we went sideways a little bit and then sold off, and then sold off even more down to this vector. Found support, went sideways, went higher a little bit, and then really sold off, and then went higher here, then really sold off there. L1 compression, assignment signed, and then there was a big downside cycle start from there. So I'm looking for something like this area right here to start. Price getting under this vector, and then L1, and then something like that. That'd be a great trade to take with puts. But price is way above this vector though, that's the problem. Although we can still see price has a little bit of reversion in the short term. Let me do this. We could see stuff like this occur. Let's delete this line. Draw a new line. I'm gonna say most of the time from what I've seen, upon first test this ceiling, like I called it, we have a little bit of downside. This line won't just disappear for some reason. Well, I'll just draw this. So maybe we see a little bit reversion in the short term. We're right in our puts, but then it goes higher. We could still capture some short-term downside in this one. So even though if FedEx is destined to go higher and higher, week over week, month over month, it can look at that. No matter what, we're most likely going to have short-term reversion lower with this one. Yeah, let me look at the wave 70, 60 minute. These lines won't delete today. 1 second. Could be my connection. Okay, 9 billion acquisition. I see that. Interesting. All right. Yeah, there's obviously something, going with FedEx. Made it go on this big run past few months. Just ignore the lines for now. But short term, in the very short term, this is the hourly, obviously, 60 minute, wave 7, 60 minute. K assignment, just bubble pivot with a high of 1. Average brings us up to here, 400.86. If it gets there right away tomorrow, this average move, it closes open states, these two, that can be entry for puts. What would really help us for a potential entry is look at the splice. I'll do that in a moment here. Okay, let's go to, let's look at the wave 10, 60 minute, kind of lags what we saw in the 7 minute, right? It's a little pivot. So this is showing that in the very short term, going to tomorrow's open, you can see some further upside. That's okay. If we want to go puts, we want to see some short-term upside so we can get a good price, get a good entry. We don't want this thing to fall apart tomorrow right away, then try to chase the puts, right? So wait 10, 15 minutes. So I would think going to open tomorrow, we see some upside, we see some strength or whatever, and then that could be an ideal entry for puts. But we still got to figure out one thing, and that's the timing, the hardest part usually. That wave, if I go back to daily, that wave 10 and 20 with that high of 89, you know, it's going sideways like I showed a minute ago. If this thing does not show any good strength tomorrow or the following days, I would expect, maybe by next week we get the L1 from what I've seen. Let's go to Splice now, actually. FedEx. Monday, Tuesday, you can throw that on. Change this. So wave 1. Okay. Oh, this is still messed up. 1 second. Daily. Look at this. I think my line's still there. Look at this high of 8. Above pivot. So like I just showed a minute ago, with that wave 7, 60 minute, wave 10, 15 minute, wave 20, 60 minute, whatever. It's showing, okay, it ended today with some strength. It seems like there's gonna be more strength in tomorrow's open. But we look at this, I'm seeing a great entry for puts. So from what I'm seeing with all these combined, what I see in mind is maybe have a good open tomorrow. It gives us an opportunity for puts entry, and then it revises lower later in the day, and then the following day it goes lower, and then maybe we can get that L1 on the wave 7 daily, wave 10 daily, wave 20 daily. But look right here at the 5% area. Let's load some more days, put this in perspective. I mean, look at this. This is very overextended. I'd feel very comfortable taking puts on this. Yeah, crazy. I can go back to wave 7 daily. Let's change the splice, but let me look at this real quick. Options analyzer, 2% odds of this. One occurrence. I mean, are you gonna bet on it for the odds? So 2%. We're at 2% now. We're gonna bet on 1% or half a percent for their highs. Compare this L1 with 22 occurrences, happens 100% of the time. So I think no, even though even 1,000 days, we've not seen a run like this in the short term for a while. So yeah, I'm really liking puts as a direction, lower timing, that's sometimes the hardest part. But I know as a fact that this can't last long, it's a very overstated outlier. So let me reload this and draw. So I'll show you our areas. So let's call any further highs less than 2%, maybe like 1% or whatever. I don't see input bands either. So either does, a 1% odd move or goes down to the 80% band, which is 380, 0.49, or even lower, it seeks the 50% band, 372 area. One of those scenarios will play out, obviously. We're past that input band. Show that. Do you a picture of this in the chat real quick? Oh, you already got it. Thanks for taking a picture of that. Thanks. I'll still say this personally. All right, but as you can see in chat, there's a picture of that. Either a 1%, probability of upside occurs going to tomorrow and the following days, or we see what's most probable, and that's downside going to tomorrow and the following days. We can see 380 or 372 play out pretty quickly. Yeah. Let's go back to the non-splice. Okay. See, that looks a little different. I'll go back to this as a refresher from what we saw in the wave 7 60-minute. All right. Yeah, so even though since today we had strength, it closed higher. We made a brief low today, then ran a little higher, need some strength. That's why we're showing strength with upside right now. That could change really quickly. Let's say if we can get the 391, 80% area, which is pretty probable, right? It's 80%, going into tomorrow. Maybe you can pick up some puts there when price gets there. 391. If it doesn't, if it's weak, it starts trying to breach this vector, this 385 area. They can also signal, okay, it's time for puts. I can kick it with a linear, yep. And a daily, right? Let's see this percent bands off. That's the waves. That's a daily. Let me take this bands off real quick. Okay, so this is the wave 7 60-minute. Then we're just looking at the linear. You can see this thing has just been going up and up and up. The short term. That's the hourly. That's the daily. It doesn't matter what time frame you're looking at. This thing's pretty overextended. We know that, and that's why we want to try it for puts. But vector's caught up. Price going sideways. Time is not on its side. It really has to show some further strength, which would be very much of a further outlier of further strength. So it's most probable we see some downside here. And yes, this is something I personally would play. that may play it. Let's go back to the daily though to end this one. Let's go over this real quick again. Yeah, it's got price gone sideways, ran out of steam. Vector has caught up with price. This will turn red, M assigned, and then we'll have an L1. That'll be a start of a downside cycle. That'd be a great signal for puts. This needs to stay below pivot. That's for sure. If it stays above pivot and continues higher and this turns green again, it's not great for being puts. In terms of a signal, let's say if this turns red tomorrow, the standard deviation, and get M assigned, and we have L1. Yeah, I could take that as a signal to enter some puts. Maybe even further out, because look at this wave 100. I know it's going to take a lot for price to go any further higher. Like I showed you a minute ago. Like look here, back in time, 2020. Price didn't take long at all to decide that it wants to be an outlier and explode much higher above this average percent area above the ceiling and to perform that outlier move. See how here it kind of like died, ran out of fuel, briefly hit the ceiling and then went lower. So yeah, see what happens here too, if you want to hold long puts on this one. See 124. Let's add some more days to that. Okay, we're here at 20% odd of this, only one currents. So again, not much odds for any further highs unless something absolutely amazing happens. We do got an imprint man there. So, yeah. So that's one thing for this one with the remaining puts. All right, I think 747. We're at the point where you guys can type in chat anything you want to see. Let me know. We can go over it real quick. But these are my 3 picks today. Bank of America, Cisco, FedEx. Bank of America, I wanted to see some further compression, some downsides, some potentially puts. Cisco, like to see some potential upside in the short term. Then FedEx downside. That's what I'm seeing with these. I'm only picking 3 because there's a lot of uncertainty with the market. These all showed some clues of what could happen in the coming days. I don't like try playing too many stocks or options when there's so much uncertainty and volatility in the market, like right now. Also, Bank of America, the options are pretty cheap. You get like a strike, let's see, look at this. The stock's at 49.81. I believe you can get like a 45 or 46 strike for like the March 20th, like 50 cents or $50 premium. Pretty cheap, you know. Look at this. But yeah, if there's any stocks you guys want me to go over, look at, let me know. QQ, sure. QQ. All right. So we definitely saw some strength here, obviously today, right? Futures are down pretty big pre-market. Found some strength, run higher, and pull back a tiny bit towards the end of the day. It looks like we ended slightly above pivot, right? A little bit. Yeah, down from the high. So it's trying to go for a bullish cycle higher, right? Wave 3, still the M assignment, red standard deviation, despite today, this big green candle on this chart. Still red standard deviation, not enough to turn that green. Average move has not played out yet. There's open stay at 592.74. Average percent below pivot, not hit yet. Put the percent bands on. 50%, which is 596, that could occur, right? Pretty quickly. It's not too far away. I'd like to see. I would not like to go long until we see either price get this, average percent area, use that as support, and then go for H1, or go lower, close an open state, perform the average move, find some strength, and then go higher. So I'm not liking long, I'll tell you that so far. Look at this price structure. You haven't really got anywhere. It's been like a tug of war game between longs and shorts, upside, downside. It hasn't really found its footing yet. It has not found its direction that it wants to flow to, day over day, week over week. I think that's gonna be a downside. I can look at the higher waves and show you what I see on that. If you ever heard me talk about that before. Oh yeah, we're above pivot. Try to reclaim this vector. Average move brings us way up there. I can't do it. I don't know. There's a lot of uncertainty in the market right now, a lot of volatility. Red standard deviation there, but no M yet. I think we need a good catalyst to get this market going back higher again. If we see a headline of ceasefire over in the Middle East, regarding that can, definitely send the market higher, get some relief to equities. QQ would be up, obviously. Still got red standard deviation, golden area. Sometimes I like to see standard deviation leave the golden area first before I try to speculate what will happen. Let's see, there's an example. Like right here, we had a red standard deviation K. If you would have entered puts right there, well, look what price did. It went higher, and then it switched to green. So you gotta be careful sometimes, when you try to speculate, just based off what you see, standard deviation below there. Like I said, we need a good catalyst to get this thing going again. A good catalyst would be a ceasefire headline, like I said. Well, I believe there's other potential catalysts out there to send this way lower, like the private credit fallout, the financial sector, AI from like Anthropic, OpenAI is killing, the software stocks. The software sector is still down 25% year to date. That's weighing on the Qs a bit. NASDAQ, stocks like ServiceNow into it. So, like all this time here, ever since December, haven't really got anywhere. We've been around the pivot. We haven't had a outlier higher or lower below the average percent. Here we tick down to the average percent, down here, but we didn't go below it. Standard deviation there is red. It's just trying to gain some velocity there, some elevation, go higher. For this to continue red, long's a no go. Amazon, I can look at that in a minute. Yeah, no problem. But to wrap up QQ, 50 to this. Yeah, see, it's just been a tug of war game. Price has not gotten anywhere. We've actually been essentially flat since mid-October, about 139 days now. If you had bought QQ, like shares of QQ 139 days ago, we'd be flat, basically. So kind of goes to show that the market's out of steam when I see it. And I'll show you that in the wave 200 real quick before I look at Amazon. I show this a lot to people. Like I said, if you had bought QQ 139, or what was it, 140 days ago, somewhere in here, you'd be almost flat in your shares that you bought. That's a lot of days, 140 days. So months and months, it's just going sideways. Price is just, tapped out, ran out of steam. And look at this blue line, this average move above and below pivot. It's looked like price is about to respect this line here and go lower for L1. This standard deviation still green while it's going lower. I'd like to see that turn red, get an M assigned. I think the wave 100, I can click that real quick. It's showing that. But yeah, it's just stuck at the ceiling area. Right here is the first test of the ceiling. It rejected. It sells in compression, went sideways. Right here in January was our retest of this ceiling area, failed to breach higher. And now ever since we're just going sideways. So anytime I see that, some people, will mention the term double top or whatever, triple top, multi-top, whatever. To me, I'm just, long story short, I'm seeing just, sideways movement for about 140 days. And anytime you see that happen with any stock or indice, usually a big implied move follows at some point. So either something really great happens, you got imprint bands there, or something on the flip side, something negative happens, and you have an L1. Well, if you look at what this blue line's showing, statistically, what's most probable to happen is what this blue line shows. So unless something really amazing happens to the overall market or the economy or whatever that affects stocks positively, and it has to happen soon, this vector is catching up. Time is not on its side. So something really great or really bad is going to happen to the overall indices, the big move either way. From what I see on the chart side, from what I see the macro side, I believe what is most probable is downside, and a lot of downside, maybe 20% plus correction in equities. For example, real quick before I go to Amazon, see here, back in time, 2023, we kind of tested the ceiling area, and we compressed for about, what was it, a couple months. And then it found some support there. And then we saw our expansion phase higher and higher to the up here, right? So if we were destined to go higher right now, why wouldn't we see something like this? Usually that's what happens for further expansion higher. Compression, expansion, that's the pattern. So compression there, expansion. This right here is the last time we consolidated. And like I said, anytime we consolidate like that, we usually have a big move. Right here is a pretty good compression phase right there. And then we saw a sharp move lower with the April tariff sell-off. So that being said, I'm seeing this consolidation, but even greater consolidation than we saw here, which means maybe we see a bigger sell-off than we saw in April. The longer the consolidation, the sharper the next move, So said Blue Owl. I can pull up too. Blue Owl, if you know anything about Blue Owl, private credit asset management company that I really believe is going to zero. There's many reasons for that. Be the big next Bear Stearns, like 2008. So, but yeah, Amazon now, and Owl for sure. Stuff Amazon. Off the top of my head, Blue Owl is no good catalyst to go long, right? Unless they get injected by the Fed or get, acquired or by a bigger bank or whatever, or a bigger firm. There's just no good catalyst to be long. They're being sued because they misled their investors over risk. Giant lawsuit there for hundreds of millions of dollars. There's a thing called redemptions, which means investors demand to take their money out, and they halted redemptions because, probably because they don't have the liquidity to pay those, right? And it's funny, on CNBC, the co-CEO, was live television, CNBC interview, said, redemptions are not a concern of ours, or you don't see those in the near future. And here we are, the stock is down, what, 40% year to date, and they halted redemptions because they can't pay out anymore. And they're being sued because people want their money back. And because they misled investors about their risk appetite in private credit market. So yeah, they are going to zero from what I believe. It's not good. Not a great situation. No reason to be long, at least. Well, with Amazon, the wave three here, MSI, red standard deviation, L1, no reason to be long in the short term right now. So far, let's go wave seven. Okay, still green standard deviation on this one though. Still looking somewhat bullish. It's above pivot, right? But look at where it's gone since what was this date? The 20th of February. Sideways, right? Average moves up here, it would close at open state. So it's running out of time. It really needs to figure out, does it have the strength or not to get there? If not, I'd bet at L1, and then this will turn red, and assigned, and then downside cycle. As you click through waves, like the smaller waves will show what could happen in the larger waves. Like right here, this is a start of a downside cycle of short term M assigned. That kind of foreshadows what could happen here. So I always click through all the waves, aggregations, time frames, all that. He's so shorted with blah. Well, yeah, good question. I'll go over the fractal. I mean, I know for sure there's no great catalyst right now, as of right now, to be long. I'll tell you that, from what I just explained. But can you short it? I mean, yeah, we'll look at the fractal. The macro side of things, yeah, I think it I think it goes practically to zero unless someone comes in and saves it, right? There's two funds. They have a private credit fund, OBDC is a ticker, then they have their asset management ticker, which is OWL, which is owl. So you're in the wave seven, same thing, sideways for a while. Average move is 220, close open state. This needs to remain green. That needs to leave the golden area green if you want to play long. But I'm not liking that it's going sideways because look here, we went sideways right here, didn't get anywhere, then look what happened. We sold off pretty good right there. Let me mark this out. Let's make this text a little bigger. Okay. Sideways right there. I know that line's not great, but just so you get the gist. Sideways. Okay. That went sideways. This went sideways. And look what happened. Look what followed each time. Compression. Downside cycle. So, okay, if it's, if it shows strength tomorrow, the following days, okay, it changes the narrative. Then we can seek that 220 open state. And it can perform the average move. But as of right now, there's no clear sign of what we'll do. Even though this shows K in green, in golden area, this shows that what's standard deviation being in this golden area, it shows we're queuing up for a squeeze move, but we don't know which direction yet. It needs to leave the golden area green to indicate that's gonna be a squeeze higher. This can turn red, tomorrow morning at open. So this is as of today's close. So yeah, keep that in mind. We had a high of 1. Now we're finding some support there. Okay. You can still perform this average move of 224. That's doable. I think with this one, you just gotta see what happens first in the coming days. Because again, look at here. We're still some distance away from this vector. The first clue of upside is price getting above vector and then seeing green deviation. We're seeing none of those. Why can't price go down here and close the open state or hit this imprint band right there? A little bit under 191. Get back to the 20% band, I could get to the 10% area. Open state there. Not seeing any clear sign to go long on this one. Same with here. It can perform this. It can respect this blue line and also be flow lower or flow higher, make it H1, pivot. But we just don't know yet, you know. As if there's more volatility, market sells off, or Amazon sells off, we could seek this 20% band, 172. Not want to be caught up in calls with that scenario. Yeah, L8. I mean, 25% odds is, a quarter. I mean, it's still pretty good odds, right? Of an L23. So if we have 25% odds of an L23 from L8, why can't we get to L9 or L10, L15, L20? There was a big gap there, but still only a little bit below its average percent. Okay, a little pivot there. So further downside is very doable with this one still. Still no clear sign to be long. I'm not seeing it. Like I said, the overall market looking bearish too. Amazon, it's most likely going to do what the Nasdaq and S&P do. Those both sell off sharp. So yeah, still lurking here on the average percent. Not liking that. See how this M was just assigned? The 6th of February. This downside cycle just getting started, just underway. 173.35, 20% band. The open state there. Yeah, I could definitely see it being hit. Let's hope it stay there. Look at this red standard deviation taking off. It's just getting started. Like I said, the Microsoft, we had an M assigned on the wave 100 back in November. Look where it's at now. So, with the higher waves like wave 100 and wave 150, we can see a long compression cycle, like staircase down for a while, like Microsoft shows. We can see that happen for the next few months with Amazon. So why try calls? There's no clear sign to be calls or be long at all, from what I see. 2,000 days. I'll pull up Owl. Blue Owl in a minute here. We have to go over this. Wave 200. Red standard deviation. After being in a cave for a very long time, with green standard deviation showing, and ever since 2023, ever since July 2023. See how we just broke below vector. It could still do something like this, but if we get an M assigned, we're going for L1. So I'm definitely not confident in any upside in Amazon, short term or longer term, from what I see in my opinion. We'll go over L real quick. Let's see. Can you cover NB? Yeah, it's NB the ticker. I can go over that if it is. Okay, Owl. So I think this is up a little bit today. Maybe the ticker got it. Yeah, that'll be next for sure. Friday they all sold off pretty heavily. Yeah, Exxon too, no problem. Go that quickly. So what is this here? Lack of compression, some expansion. Didn't make it that far. Further compression. Let's look at the linear. Like I said, this thing got me down. I think it's like 30% or whatever year to date. And it's down about 40%, I believe, ever since that CBC interview with the co-CEO. He said everything is fine, everything's great, no redemptions in sight, and look where we are. Yeah, oil for sure, oil stocks. I'll go over those in a minute. Let's just see, look at this real quick. There's some further targets lower you can see. Look at this formation here. Stop there for some strength, reclaim vector, get back to that average percent area. Now it's back down. Not great. Needs to show some strength there for sure. Get that vector. Let's go for this H1, the wave 7, I mean, sorry. wait 7 daily. Let's go wait 10, 20. Yeah, look at this like rejection there with price and that vector. Like I said, price can't build that vector is the first clue that okay, there's a reversion back to the upside. But that didn't happen. It rejected that. Had some further weakness, and now we're trending lower again. Throw some more days on there. Has to be targeting something down there. Yeah, there's nothing yet. But there's gotta be something. I know it's not that old a company. Maybe there's nothing in Wave 10. Probably, trying to short these since it's been already on a outlier run lower for a while. Like I said, it's kind of like 30%, whatever year to date. The problem is there's sharp upside reversion moves. You don't want to get caught in puts when those occur. It'd be a good entry to buy puts when those occur. But yeah, you don't want to get caught in those. Like if you entered puts right here, about a further downside open, we did a little bit. Then we had some sharp upside, but then further downside. So you can be right on direction, but your premium could get killed in the meantime when there's, temporary reversion higher. So it's something to look out for. But look at this open state, 9.20, very doable. I think it can very well get there pretty soon. A sign to me that we should touch puts or try to shorten this thing at all would be if the standard deviation is extreme, which it's elevated. It's elevated, but it's not extreme yet. Extreme level being 5.7. It's not really extreme. It's elevated. Let's say we just close this, or just about close that open state. Level 5. Yeah, that's extreme though. See, yeah, you know, maybe the overall market, maybe we see a reversion higher. Let's say there's like a headline of ceasefire talk on the Middle East and everything. The market, there's a relief rally, and maybe this thing tags along with that rally. That could be a good time to short it, but what that worries me is that the standard deviation is so extreme. It can't get more extreme than that, but I can go sideways for a while. That's for sure. You know, at this point in time, with trying to put foots on this, you're trying to short it. You gotta read what's going on macro side of things. You gotta read what's going on with the company. You know, which is there's nothing great, but since this thing sold off so much, if there's any signs of liquidity injection or any kind of assist in their business from somebody, then this thing would definitely spike higher in the short term at least. Since it's beaten down so much, but these guys have problems. End of story. Now don't see it getting any better. So let's just say for that one. But yeah, let's go over a couple others. Hertz real quick. Yeah. Oh, so that's a HTZ. That's the ticker. So I have not looked at this one in a while. Let's pull up the linear. Oh, yeah. It's just not doing well at all. I think for this one, since it's been low for so long, it's been selling off. I gotta say, good catalyst for this thing. Look at this here. We rejected that vector. It's back below this kind of flow area, and now we have all these open states lower. Personally, from what I know about this company, I would not touch long as of right now. Fractals kind of supporting that. so far. Can you short it? I mean, I think there's, different potential to. We know that long is a no-go, right? Can you buy puts? Like all those open states there. And the average move is way down there at $2. This thing's at $4. Hmm. I haven't come up with this company in a while. I'm not sure what's going on with this one, you know, financial health wise. So they probably have a lot of debt, but borrowing costs are not too high, with the rates being not too high, but definitely elevated since, 2020, 2021 area where borrowing costs were near zero. I don't know. It's hard to say. With what I saw in the Wave 7, if what I know about this thing, their business, I would not touch it for long. I'll tell you that. Yeah, with this structure here, rejecting that vector or almost average percent, I think you even give puts maybe a try. Get down to this, area here, 370 open state, bunch of open states there. Red standard deviation. Probably trade this, yeah, maybe some puts further downside. So I'm seeing with that. Since there's some other stocks people want to see, I'm gonna keep going. NB. I don't think I viewed this one before. Looks like it's about pivot. I think this thing shows some strength today. Get that right. Neocorp Developments, $701 million company, small cap. Okay. Looks like this one is fairly new. This IPO in 2023, so not gonna be too much data on this one. So I'll briefly go over this for a minute. We're at a high of one. I'll pivot by a little bit. KS sign, green stimulation. So we're seeing the clues here that we can see further expansion higher. This average area here above pivot. It would close this open stay at 6.78. Price being at 5.60 right now. A pretty good move. That looks pretty good. KS sign, green stimulation. That just needs a legal in the area green. We compressed for a while. We finally expanded higher, made it H1 and L1, another high of one. I like seeing that pattern. We'll have something like this where it gets in the elevator, go higher, has a H of one, high of one, and then goes make some downside compression, and now it's a little higher. I want to see something like this occur. I like that. So it definitely has potential for upside. I'm liking it. I'll stop the wave 20 for this one since there's not much data. Let's go 500 days. Yeah, look at that. It's finally close above vector again. Green standard deviation, the CAK sign there. With options analyzer, L18 at 8% odds to L22, only 4% odds. So that's not really worrisome for further lows. The percent band's on, look down to 20. We could seek 6.23 to 8% band. It can occur pretty quickly. So yeah, I'm liking this one for some upside, at least in the short term. I don't know too much about this company at all. But with the fractal, yeah, it's definitely showing the clues and the signs of some reversion back higher. So I think you try longs on that one at some point. All right, next one. Exxon. Exxon's been a huge run. This thing's up about 30% year to date, while QQ is down about 2%. Pretty crazy. I've not seen a inversion like that between oil stock like Exxon and QQ in a long time. This thing kind of gave up its gains today a little bit, didn't it? This thing's at 154.22. That's the price of this thing. This thing was a lot higher pre-market, peaked at 161. It looks like. But still, we have a KSI and green stimulation in a bullish cycle. Can it continue? That's the question. Wow, okay. You know, from what I've seen, when we see something like this, where price makes the L1, falls under vector, makes a brief L1, and then goes immediately back higher, has a high one, then a high two. That shows that there's definitely some strength there. I've seen that with gold in the past few months. When we see a big expansion cycle like this, it makes a brief L1, then it immediately goes back higher because there's so much strength there. We see a KSI and green stimulation in the gold area. Yeah. Oh, okay. 47. Let's add some more days. Look at that, 175. That's where price is trying to float to. That's where it's targeting. Much above this vector, so it's not worrisome. I like how we, from this high, we kind of compressed for a little bit, and now we're seeing that expansion. So 175 definitely has some good odds of hitting, from what I see. I like that. 185.98, another open state there. Yeah, I'm liking this one. I mean, it's Exxon. I mean, it's an NVIDIA of oil, Goliath. Even with oil not doing that well in the past few months, this thing's been running and running more than the others. Same with Chevron. 219 way up there is doable, but not so probable. That imprint band there is more probable. I have 123. Yeah, low odds. Looks like 6% odds. Yeah. As of right now, or in the short term, you stay long this if you are long until you see a ceasefire headline. There'd be a sharp sell-off, I'm sure, but this thing could stay overall long though in the longer term or the higher time frames of things. At that 175 I showed, very doable. All right, and the other ones, yeah, Chevron, I can show that real quick. It'll be a similar situation. Maybe some people plan their next earnings report. They'll have huge sales growth because their exposure from Venezuela now. They're capitalizing on that. Okay. Similar to Exxon. Same thing. This team had the L1. It just fell towards down there, the pivot, and then just kept going higher. And there's green deviation. So this K is continuing. This goes to show there's so much strength there. With that much strength, it's never a great idea to try to guess how long the strength will last. Just go with the flow of things. Don't try to short this yet. Yeah, that's pretty elevated. Leave gold area. Definitely don't short this yet. From what I'm seeing. Imprint band there, right under 205. That's doable. Only at a high of 41. It's not that crazy. Look at this. Open state of, is it 192? That could close, the following days, 192, right? Price having a high of 190 today. It's up after hours. It's at 190.25 after hours. So 192, yeah, that could happen, tomorrow or the following days, pretty soon. So yeah, definitely don't short these yet. If there is a ceasefire that shows up in the headlines, it might offer opportunity to collect some short-term compression, some short-term downside, right? But yeah, let's look at oil. The overall CL equals F. Let's look at crude oil though. So we looked this Sunday. This is, we can expect something like that, of course. But let's go to wave 100 though. Let's do 1,000 days. Look at that. 76.65. That's next. 5% being there. We have high of 8. That K is signed. February 19th. Still green deviation. Heading higher. Again, I don't think you short oil stocks for oil itself until there's either one, a further output hike from OPEC, or there's a ceasefire or whatever. We got 73.22. You could close that tomorrow. It's almost there. But look at the wave 200 here. Despite that big gap up, it has not gone above pivot. Pivot's 81. So, target at 80.33. Yeah, this 74 can close pretty quickly. So wave 100 here, or wave 200 here, showing that this is just getting started, right? But if there's like a ceasefire or, like I said, OPEC hike in production, we could see something like this where we shoot up, but we shoot way back down, just like there. That's possible. You gotta consider that. We don't know what they'll do. But yeah, green deviation, we know the move right now is directionally higher. You don't short oil at all, or any oil stocks right now. That's for sure. But what is my pick out? Exxon, Chevron, Shell, BP. Oh, Exxon's the most unstoppable stock I've ever seen. It's up there, Johnson Johnson, Eli Lilly, just a couple other ones. Those Goliaths. Those are so hard to short. There's so many. It's just so many things that can push those stocks higher. Even with oil price not doing too well, those stocks still rise higher, like Exxon. So I don't know. I don't think. I think Exxon would be my pick out of those. From what you said, those four, and FCX report. 1 second. All right, FCX. I do like OKE, One Oak, ConocoPhillips, COP. Those ones are a little bit more volatile. Those are like midstream. OKE does natural gas too. So we've been playing those for quite a bit. I like the stocks a lot. Freeport, I love copper. You know, on a big pullback in the market, I'm gonna buy the CPER ETF copper. Freeport's a great company. This thing's been on a giant run the past 6 months. I'd be shares and just go long the shares. I've not checked out the options chain on CPER yet. There's also COPX, COPX, also their copper ETF. I'd rather pick an ETF because I remember about 5 months ago at least, or is it late summer, there was a mining accident. There was an accident at one of their mines at Freeport, and this thing fell like 10 to 15% one day. A couple workers died. It's like, I'd rather, instead of picking one stock, I'd rather pick a basket of stocks, so ETF, copper ETF, like COPX or CPER, you know, 'cause this, it's a tough business, dangerous business. It's mining. It was like an avalanche or something, and yeah, this thing was down giant. Would be a good buy though that day. I think it was right here. Was it September 2025 or it might have been over here actually? Yeah, this looks like a bigger pullback. That was April tariffs. Oh, somewhere it was this date. Yeah, could have been this right here, July of 2025. Down pretty big. I love the company though. Fractal wise, this thing's been a huge, huge expansion cycle. You know, let's see what this thing is targeting. Let's say close the open state that was open for a long time since 2016. Big gap there. 113's open state. That's pretty high for current price. I mean, is it possible? Yeah, but very, very low probability it gets there in the short term, at least in the wave 10. Wave 20, same thing. I think these stocks are due for reversion. But yeah, I'm gonna go over MP and Lemonade real quick for you, and then I'll probably wrap this up tonight. We can continue going through this. Wave 50. Okay, infrared around 76. Get there. It's just under $70 right now. Not too far away at all. It's significantly up above that vector. So it's not worrisome for L1 anytime soon, but it's just really overextended. Let's see, wave 150, nothing, nothing there. Just that imprint has not quite hit that. These real quick. See the open states. No, nothing there. It's going to wave 200. Nothing that's close, at least. There's some imprints, but nothing close. Well, yeah, like I said, I'm gonna stick with that CPER ETF when things sell off. Always be a demand for copper, in the long run. Okay, MP, Mountain Pass, Minerals. I think doesn't the government have a stake in this stock now? 10% stake or whatever it is. You know, the government has a stake in the public company. We know the odds of this public company, going to zero or bankrupt or whatever, very low because government's in there to assist it. They invested in this company for a reason. K assigned 25th of February. This thing was up pretty good today, wasn't it? Look at this. 8%, okay. It's at 63.73. Well, despite it being up pretty well today, almost 9%, to me, this looks like the start of a bullish cycle. So something like this, the performance average move there to 73 area, at least. Okay, here, you know, I think this whole war conflict thing drives the demand higher for these critical minerals and stuff, right? That go into all this defense stuff or missiles or just aircraft, so KSI, Green State Aviation, Lean Gold area, big high of one. Yeah, I think you can stay long this a little bit. To me, it looks like a start of a bull cycle higher, multiple waves. Look at this wave 20, just getting started to the upside. No H1 yet. 66.41. That's good. That's where it's mostly heading right now. But yeah, let's see a KS sign there. Further green is deviation. Long is looking good so far. This. Okay. Interesting here. I like what I see this price structure. I'll show you why. Compression, call that compression. Found some support down there. Went sideways a little bit. Now we're seeing some expansion finally. Yeah, then we got imprint right up there, right below 90. Yeah, open state 72.83. Green stimulation poking out. Yeah, I like this so far. Wow, okay. Um, yeah, I mean, look how long it's been red in this area, but it hasn't really got elevated like here. So, which kind of foreshadows that this can turn green and then the green will be elevated like here back in time. So, yeah, this is looking good so far. Has potential. I think it's so far the short term, you can stay long this one, unless there's an absolute outlier event, sending shares lower. But okay, lastly, Lemonade. I looked at this one. This one has to be down big in the past few months, right? Or somewhat, yeah, multiple month. Let's see what this shows. Type of sense. So it looks like about pivot. Let's say it's going for a bullish cycle in short term with wave one. It was up 3% today. It's at 53.26. Wave three is kind of denying further downside. This needs to turn back green, get like a K assigned, and then get above vector and above pivot to give us clues of upside cycle. This has potential. I mean, kind of denied the vector there, kind of rejected it. But as long as this area can hold, let's call it 50 at least. Let's call it the 50 area. As long as that can hold and this can turn green, we can see the upside cycle play out. But yeah, the clues of the upside cycle again would be price needs to get above this vector, so some strength. This needs to turn green down here, possibly with a K assigned. And then we can kind of expect that H1 to come into play pretty quickly. Wave 10. Oh, it's 20. 10. Same thing like I just said, needs a, form a bottom or try to form a bottom, the short term, get above vector, have green standard deviation. In the very short term, we're getting signs that it's going to revise, so that's good, all right, if you're trying to go long. I think it's a little early. This I don't like though. That's the problem. Wave 50. So since this M just got started out, I feel like I see this a lot with many stats right now. Downside cycle began. It's pretty sharp downside. M assigned on the 13th of February. If you remember what I said about was it wave 7, it's showing clues of potential upside soon. Maybe there is upside in the short term, but it fails, it stalls out, and then we go lower, close these open states. So I've seen this happen a lot from what I'm seeing here between the wave 50 and the what was it, wave 3, 7, L16, 8% odds. I mean, there's a low odd of this low. So perhaps something like this happens. Okay, gives above vector, standard deviation turns green. We have a brief high of 1 or 2, or maybe even 3, but then it goes lower again, right? So something like that in the wave 7 will play out. And let's go back to the 50. And then, yeah, it'd be short-term upside, like I drew there. Short-term upside to get the high of 1 or 2 in the wave 7, and then that stalls out, and then we get further lows. because the M just getting started there. So yeah, I'd say be careful if you want to try to go long this one. Maybe in the very short term, there's a reason why it's selling off like that. Why try to fight the other direction or fight for the other direction rather. The standard deviation is just now turning red in February. No L1 yet. Same here. Yeah, be careful. Maybe in the very short term we'll get, say it was up, maybe tomorrow's another up day, or following days with a up day or two. I think the H1 on the wave 7, but further downside week over week, month over month is what's most probable from what I see in the higher waves. So, but yeah, that wraps up for this, and this is gonna wrap it up for this whole session. But like I said, my main three today were Bank of America for potential further downside, Cisco potential short-term upside, and then FedEx downside short-term and in the mid to long-term term. So that's what I'm seeing there. But yeah, we're gonna wrap it up here, guys. Thanks for joining in. Swing Trade Monday. We do this every Monday, 7 p.m. Eastern time. Thanks for joining in.